Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Shifty Speed Shop. And I think today we're going to do a project car walk and show you guys some of the stuff we have on the channel, and also a parts car. When I did the last episode with the Chevelle, this was in the background, and I'm sure you'd kind of, with the way that it looks, people might want to know a little bit about it. And then I'll show you some of the parts that we're going to harvest off of this car to throw at the 53 and try to keep it, again, trying to keep that to a kind of a major budget build. So let's take a look at this, and then we'll take a run out back and look at the next things that are coming in. So first and foremost, let's take a look at our parts car for the 53. So the Mighty G body Malibu, and I'm sure you look at this and you think to yourself that before whatever that was happened, that this car must have been pretty straight and in decent shape, but really it wasn't. These Malibus like to hide some rust and stuff underneath. So let's take a look at this. So the first thing that is the easiest to see, because I don't know if I can crawl underneath, if I can even get it up high enough in the air, but the bumper. So they like to rust the rear frame off kind of between the rear wheel and back. I had one of these in high school. It did the same thing. The frame underneath about midway is equally as rusted. Got this from a good friend of mine, and when he picked it up, I was laughing because it probably had an 8-inch sway in it. Because I looked at it, I was like, well, before you guys started hacking on it, it was probably a pretty straight looking car, and it was. The scariest part is somebody was actually racing this car. I believe they were drag racing it. It's got some sort of a posi or a Lincoln Locker, something in the rear, and it had a pretty stout motor. I'll see if I can import a clip here. He's got a quick little run through the gears that he did with it, and you can hear the motor definitely does sound pretty healthy. But anyhow, so the car has a lot of really great parts. I guess allow me to digress. So what he did was, when he bought this car, it had a really good powertrain in it, and he noticed that frame was just absolute Swiss cheese underneath, and he wasn't going to mess with that. So what my friend did was he donated it to a local fire department, and what you're seeing is actually the remnants of them doing training with the Jaws of Life. So at least, again, if the car went down and it wasn't repairable, at least it offered some training to our firefighters, because when we're out and we do something a little bit crazy, at least they got some good training out of the deal, and this could save someone's life. So obviously they cut the roof open. I don't know a lot about this stuff, but they also did a clip, and I think he called it a dashboard roll, and they must clip the posts out, and then they put a jack in this area here, and they roll the whole dash forward, and that way if you get in an accident and the dash is smashing somebody's legs, that's how they access that clearance. And it took me a little bit. So one of the parts I was going to use was the gas pedal, and at first I looked down there, I was like, where in the world is the gas pedal? But when they did their dashboard roll, hopefully you can see it here, the gas pedal got tucked behind the floorboard, so the seam in the floorboard came apart, and when it came back down, the gas pedal is actually trapped behind the steel. So kind of interesting stuff. It's amazing. It's great that they have those capabilities for when we maybe have a misjudgment in our abilities with a car and something does happen to us. So the sheet metal in the car looked pretty good, but I'm honestly pretty happy that the fire department got some training out of it. So let's go through and talk about some of the stuff that I'm going to harvest off the car. So there is a B&M ratchet shifter down there, and it actually is functional, still has the cable and everything with it. So I'll probably use that in the 53. I'll keep the steering column in case I need one for another project someday. They may not match, but you know what, when we're talking a serious budget build like that 53, here's a pair of bucket seats to throw in it. So they'll probably start off in the 53. One of the big things I needed was the rear axle. So these G bodies are extremely close in width. I don't remember if it's got to be within an inch of the wheelbase or the wheel track on that 53. These are a four link type car, triangulated 4-link, so I'll have to burn all of those ears off and then weld spring perches on, but not a big deal. So that rear end is what really helps these cars be a really good donor. And depending on the direction you're going to go, you could even pull this steering column out of these. And what we used to do is we'd find them, they might have a 305 in them or whatever. We'd buy the whole car, pull the 350, the 305, the rear end out, and then Speedway has kits that you could throw these brakes and such on it. After looking at what was the shape of these brakes, it was actually cheaper for me to buy their entire disc brake kit for the 53 than it was to actually even buy the pieces. So another thing I'll grab is the booster, and I don't have a lot of hope for the master cylinder, but the proportioning valve. I'm sure there'll be a lot of other little bits and pieces, but I definitely know starting off that that'll get me my booster, seats, shifter, rear end. So really quite a good deal. And I think I'm going to have to save the front end. I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up with these things around when the two doors were kind of cool, but I'm going to save the grill and such. Maybe I'll make a wall hanger out of it. But here is the G body, and the reason it doesn't have a roof on it and kind of what we're using it for. So let's run out back and take another look at some of the other stuff. All right, I guess this would be, what, project 3? Because, you know, you have to have more than one, apparently. So this is a 65 half-ton long bed fleet side, and I got this from some friends of mine that had a parts store somewhat local to me. I think it was her uncle purchased it new, and it was sitting behind their store, hadn't been running several years, so got it and got it running. Had a 283, 3 on the tree. It's of course manual brakes, no AC, the normal things you'd see in a typical pickup of this era. Had it running for a little while, didn't get very many miles put on it, and it started hammering pretty bad, and all the wrist pins were locked up. So my dad and I started working on this, and he'd always wanted to put a Vortec in. I hate to tell you, but it's been about 10 years since I really worked on this project. Started working on it, so I've got a 4L60 in it, and a 5.3 out of, I think it's like an 02 Suburban, fairly low miles on the motor. And my dad got sick and he passed away, and to tell you the truth, I just wasn't really ready to work on it yet, but my kids are getting interested in it, so this is probably going to show up on the channel at some point here in the future. I started collecting the last of the parts I needed. I figured out that a Camaro radiator, I think it was from like the Dustbuster looking ones that had the LS's in them, fits just perfectly in here. And if it kept the 350 in one of those cool, especially with this little airs there was, it'll work great in here. And I've got the electric fan package for it and everything, so I've got all the parts. I guess we could take a little look in the engine bay. So my brother wanted to strip out the wire harness, and I guess he was just at that point waiting for the final say as to where the computer would be mounted, and we'll get this thing going. Need fuel system, wire harness, radiator, it's ready to go. The brakes still work on this thing. I had a posi put in it, so it's got 373 gears, so it should be a fun little pickup to run around with. The original radiator is just absolutely rotted out. It's like Swiss cheese. I'll keep it for the tanks in case somebody wants to record at some point, or if I ever for some reason want to put it back to it. But I'll use that Camaro radiator because it's got the right size outlets, it's got the steam port, all the things that I need, and it's got the electric fan package with it, fitted from GM. So if it kept those cool, it should keep this cool. I absolutely hate an overheating vehicle. So A little walk around, of course, typical rust in the dog legs. Cab's actually pretty solid. Take a look inside. I've got my stacks of parts over here that are, of course, for the pickup. That's actually an extra intake. I've got a little bit of LS stuff around here, but floorboards are solid. Interior is actually in really good shape. Visor is coming apart. Only one visor on this one. I think you might have been able to get a second visor as an option, but I don't really know. Door shuts pretty well. Of course, like anything in this vintage, there was always quite a bit of body damage. There is that Camaro radiator and the fan stack, and I actually think I got the air conditioning condenser with it too. But, you know, a little body damage. It's got great patina. I have no intention of painting this. It came from family friends, and it was just kind of how it was. So, nothing too special, but it means a lot to me. So, now that we took a look at this guy, let's proceed on to the old brown dually. This is a 79 GMC, I guess it is. 1-ton dually, 2-wheel drive. And I got this one from a friend of mine. Again, I guess that seems to be a trend here. It had been sitting for a number of years, and there was some kind of deal between himself and a business partner. He bought it from her. It sat. The motor was stuck. So I finally got it purchased from him, and it took me over 2 years to get all the paperwork together because the titled owner had passed away. I had to deal with an executor of an estate. It was just kind of a stack of stuff. So I've got actually a 6-liter LS. I'm going to put in this in front of the original Turbo 400 and just roll it that way. Another one that I've got all the parts for that have come in over this last year. I'm always kind of looking for different stuff, so I've got everything for it. That's another LS, another 5.3 that I bought. When I see stuff cheap, I buy them. I mean, LS motors work really nicely. They've got to be one of the ugliest engines ever built, and they're kind of boring, but they're a great engine. So we'll see what happens. But you can see this one, aside from some flaking paint, a little damage here. Really, for a 79 dually, it's in extremely good shape. So, actually the interior is really good in this one too. I had it all cleaned out. I did get the 454 freed up, but all the rings were somewhere between stuck and broken. So I did drive this a little bit. I suppose we can give you a little look under the hood, but the big block is out. I've got it stored away right now. I don't know if there's very much to look at with the engine compartment, but there's a set of Amazon mounts that you can drop a 6-liter in, or 5.3, whatever, LS based engine, and bolt directly to the stock transmission without moving anything. And that's what we're going to do to this. It's actually a pretty easy conversion, and this pickup was an AC and cruise control, so it's fairly well optioned. So at some point, again, I got the parts. I've got all the parts for it. I'm short on time for all things, but good looking grill, just a decent looking pickup. It'll be pretty nice. One thing that I did kind of wander by and didn't bring up was it is a camper special. So I'll give you a 10,000 JDW. Pickup campers were a huge thing back in the day. That also got a rear sway bar that I do not think was present on the non-camper specials, and a Dana 70 rear end. So kind of a cool pickup. But we'll look forward to seeing this thing in there one day. Again, I've got just about everything ready to go for it. I grab parts when I can find them cheap, and that's about the only way that you can really afford to do this and have this many projects. If you just went out and bought everything, and you could, it would just cost you a lot more. So let me get the hood closed on this guy. Remember, square bodies, or heck, you know what? Let's see if we can do it one-handed. People have a tendency, I've obviously oiled these hinges over time, but everybody likes to just grab the hood and pull straight down. And that is how you kink these hoods. I don't know if you can see it. Here, actually, let me pull it back up. But you push the hood backwards towards the windshield as you pull down. Because you see how that hinge action actually goes towards the rear? And I'm not pulling straight down. I'm actually pushing back and just a little downward force. And that's how you keep your hood straight. This one's got a slight bow in it, but I'll put some stiffeners in it, straighten it right up. Again, another pickup or another vehicle out here with really good patina. It'll look really nice when I get it done. I'll give a little bit of buffing and we'll see what it looks like. This was one of the more recent acquisitions I've made. I traded actually some random guy on Facebook Marketplace some stuff for this. I think this is a 74, maybe a 75. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it is a crew cab square body, which are kind of hard to find. I mean, overall, there is some rust popping through in the rockers, but it is not just roached out. Around here, most of these things are so rusted that you can just see the ground underneath the floorboards, but they're pretty solid. That divot is actually a divot in the mouse crap. But if you could smell this thing right now, it's a bit strong. I'm gonna wait until it gets cold this fall. Well, actually, heck, that's about now. But wait for a day that's just above freezing and tear out the old Flex Steel seat. I don't know if you can tell how close. I don't want to touch the steering wheel too bad, and I do have large hands, but it's not even a hand width between there. And you gotta love how these 70s steering wheels, oh, I touched it. They turn to that gooey substance. And this is one of the worst. You can actually see the puddle where it was dripping off the bottom of the steering wheel. This is actually a pretty low option vehicle. Of course, was a heat only pickup. And somebody put that aftermarket air conditioner in. There would normally be like a pocket there. So I've never seen one of those before. It's kind of neat. Honestly, I'm probably not going to use that. We'll see what goes back on it. Roll up windows, manual locks, all the things. But it is so far down the option list. I always thought this was neat. It never had a dome light in it. So it wasn't ever punched. It was never drilled for the dome light. Anything. Kind of an interesting thing. There is a hole, let me see if I can get the camera down here, for the switch right there. So apparently you could option them down to the point where you didn't even have a dome light. This one is also another camper special, which is kind of neat. I like them. Something a little bit different about the pickup, but again, probably gave you an extra leaf in the rear end and a bigger cooling system, who knows. It came with this utility box on it. I've got a friend coming to get that, so I'm going to need to find the proper bed for it. These would have had the exposed fuel cap on them instead of the door. So this part's not too interesting. We'll just kind of roll around it. Came with all kinds of extra treasures. A little cleanup needed here. I don't think I can get this back door open. Wow. Whew. You can taste the smell, and it's not good. Just take a look at sheet metal. You know, sheet metal wise, I like original sheet metal, even if I have to do a little bit of repair to it. There's a little touch of rust right down here. Oh, by the way, this also did not have a radio in it either, because normally your antenna would go right up here through the windshield. Was never installed, and somebody put an antenna and a radio in it afterwards. So when you say low option vehicle, this one is low option. This hood is kind of hard to get open. Tell you what, we'll come back to it. I gotta use both hands. Now, when I was talking earlier about closing a hood properly, this one is so folded, has been folded for so long, so many times, that it's actually broken across. So not a lot of hope for this guy. Um, big block pickup, no air conditioning from the factory. The bracket is missing, but the lines are here. You can see them going through the firewall there for that aftermarket air conditioning system. And this is just the way it was. Valve cover open. This motor is stuck. So it's also got an interesting installation. So let me see if I can get around. It's got this great cattle guard and tow bar bumper in it. But these were a manual brake booster. Maybe I should have showed you that in the brown pickup. It has one too. So you would typically mount these under the dash, and when you stepped on the brakes, they were teed in to your fronts, and it would actually push this lever over, and there's probably a rheostat inside, and most of these you'd be able to turn. I thought it was always the stock, but this one has another knob to activate the brakes. So you wanted it in the cab because if you needed trailer brakes for some reason, without hitting your vehicle brakes, your service brakes, you could pull the lever over, and then your adjustment and everything. But somebody didn't want to take the effort of running the line into the cab, and they've got it mounted on the inner fender in here. I've always found it interesting, the random things you find. Big radiator because of the camper special, and the big block, same thing as the GMC. So that's pretty much all the old crew cab brings to us. So I've got one more for you to look at in the barn. Alright guys, so here is the last item. This is a 50 Chevy 4-door. I guess you'd call it a barn find because there's definitely barn dust on it. This was my grandpa's car, and sometime, I think in about the 80s, he threw a paint job on it. The interior is just kind of what it is. It's original to the car. It's got either a 231 or a 235 or a 261 6-cylinder and 3 in the tree. So this thing came down through my father and down to me, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the Power Glide and bracketry and everything, and I'm going to convert this to a Power Glide car since I have such a hard time physically getting on a clutch. So I guess this is the last item in the line of projects. Or I lie, there's actually a CJ2A Jeep over in that corner there. It's a friend of mine. We might work on the channel. I'm not sure at this point exactly what its history is or its future. Anyhow, just a quick episode for you guys, and we'll hopefully get back to working on the 53 on the next episode. We'll go from there. All right, guys, so that was a walkthrough of some of the projects that we've got lined up to come in. Hopefully there's some stuff out there that you guys like, and these are kind of the things that interest us, and we'll get them on the channel here before long. First, right now we're trying to get this garage finished out. As you can see, there's uninsulated walls behind me. We've got all the stuff coming. It's taken a long time to get all of the supplies rounded up. There's apparently shortages in everything lately. So we'll get back to some more automotive content coming up shortly. In fact, the next video, I think we'll go out and we'll pull the rear end out of that Malibu and some of the other stuff, and let's take a look inside it. That thing was a former drag car of some sort, so it'll be interesting to see what's in there because it's got some type of posi. I'm gonna bet it's a Lincoln locker, but let's take a look through and see what kind of stuff we come up with. And anybody who's made it this far in the video, I certainly appreciate it. You guys definitely helped the channel out quite a bit, and everybody that's subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the button down, I don't know, wherever it is, and hit the subscribe for us. It really helps the channel out, and we'll get back to making some more automotive content. So, till next time, guys, I appreciate y'all. Thank you.